Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hello, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me today is a fabulous artist I'm so excited to have a chat with. Please welcome Helena Hallberg. Hey, Helena.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. We have lots to discuss. But before we get into all the specifics, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey as a songwriter so far.
Yeah, totally. So I was born to, I have Swedish parents. They're from Sweden, but I was born in Switzerland and spent most of my life in Switzerland. So I moved around a lot and kind of was navigating cultures. And I started with music when I was very, very young, but then took a break. When I graduated high school, I didn't really know if I had the I don't know, the courage, I guess, to be a musician full time. So I took a break for a few years and then I got a scholarship to go study music in New York and I took that. And then somehow a few years later, we moved to Nashville and are really enjoying it. I'm about to release my debut album, which is really exciting because I've been releasing music for about 8 years, but this is my first full length record. So I'm really excited to be here.
So excited for you. And when this
Yeah.
is out, the album will be out. So everyone go listen. That's so fantastic and exciting. Congratulations on getting to the milestone of releasing your debut album.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you mentioned how you navigated different cultures, and that's obviously a big part of your background. So how does being multicultural play into your songwriting?
I think I mean, in a lot of ways is the short answer, but I think it affects it both in terms of, like, how you see a story and understanding that there are very, very different viewpoints and backgrounds and given circumstances, if you will. But then it also just, like, gives you a different way of looking at linguistics, I think. Like, how the turn of phrase, a certain sayings in other languages that you can take and you can, twist them around and you can kind of make it self-referential in a really fun multicultural, multilinguistic way. There's little fun ways you can kind of, make a nod at your multicultural background and multilingual background, which is really fun. And I really try to do as much as I can.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Do you have a specific song or lyric that comes to mind that you did that with?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think I just use it as a way to make something fit in a really nice way. Let me think. Well, I used in one of the songs on the record called Lighthouse. I'm talking about the Öresund that is the little strait of ocean between Denmark and Sweden. Um, and I just think that using the Öresund, the specific name of the body of water, really just changes the phrase completely, and there's something unexpected by taking in a word from a different language.
Right, yeah,
Um,
and
yeah,
absolutely, and the other thing too is I feel like it brings authenticity to you as a songwriter and also allows
right.
you to create unique music as well.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. So, what are some themes that you see commonly come up in your music?
I think I mean, a lot of nature. I've increasingly actually found a lot of inspiration from nature, and also, thinking about the different kinds of nature. Now we're in Nashville. That's a very different nature than what am used to in Scandinavia or even in Switzerland. So a lot of nature and a lot of different perspectives, kind of coming from different types of nature. Yeah, and then I think a lot of it is about, like, traveling and development and growth and stuff like that. That's been a lot of a central theme on this record for sure.
Fantastic. So, how would you describe your songwriting process? Are you more of a lyricist? Do you go for the music first?
I think I'm increasingly becoming as, like, a lyrics first kind of person. I think the other parts of it can kind of, you know, cleverly be shaped to support the lyric and to like paint a picture. So I'm, I used to be a very, I mean, I was a music major and I went to conservatory and whatever. So music is very important to me, but I'm also, I just think it's wonderful to start with words and start with language.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I also am a music major. I got my degree and I double majored in music and creative writing. So I
Oh,
have that background and I have a master's in writing too. But yeah, I
that's
completely agree.
awesome.
I think that even though for both of us music is a big part of our lives and we got formal educations in
Mm,
music, I still
mm,
think I start with lyrics more often just because with what you said, it's easier to paint a picture and capture an atmosphere when you have something to start from. Like, I usually start from some kind of
absolutely.
experience or concept that is important to me and rooted in my personal experience. And once I have an idea, maybe not a full lyric draft, but once I have some lyrics and an idea of what I want to say, then it's easier to come up with the musical aspects to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I just like as a musician, I'm sure you can relate to this, but it's so fun to go from one point of inspiration and then kind of have it musically kind of flower out from there as opposed to creating something and then trying to fit words onto that.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I've done both. There were a couple times where I had, because my background is in piano, so I've actually
Mm.
composed a couple piano accompaniments once and was like, oh, this would be pretty as an accompaniment, but I have no idea what song I could write over top of this. So
Right.
I definitely find it more difficult to start with music because, of course, you can have a mood, you can have a tone, but that can go so many different directions. And I find
Absolutely.
it's difficult sometimes to fit something to that. I find it easier to have an inspiration point with an
Mm.
experience or a concept and then develop it from there.
Yeah, it's so satisfying. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's chat about your album that you mentioned a couple times. So, if
Mhm.
you could first give a glimpse into your inspiration behind finally doing a debut album after being involved with music for a few years.
Yeah. I think this was for me from the very start, this was like a this record was about the process rather than the result. Like I feel like I had a lot of growing to do and a lot of learning to do. And just in terms of what it is to be in an album cycle and and how to really leverage that as an independent artist too. Um, so I think I kind of went into it with an open mind and but I also wanted to create something really meaningful and I feel like I had collected all these songs that I hadn't really paid enough attention to over the years. So a few of these were written like a good number of years ago, but I just felt like I needed to do this journey and put these songs out and, kind of go from there. And it was such a great opportunity to connect with people and like to work with other creatives and work with creatives that you learn so much from their process too, even though their medium is different. But yeah, it was all about the process, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how you said that you went into it wanting to focus on the process, not necessarily the result, because it definitely is a learning experience when you do your first
Mm,
album. I'm in the process of my sophomore album. Between them, I did an EP, but
yeah.
just looking back to my debut album in 2021, it was a lot of stress at times, and the process was so new to me because I've done several singles, but it's
Yeah.
completely different when you get into a body of work like that. And so I
Totally.
definitely embraced the process too and was extremely mindful of what worked, what didn't. And so now this
Right.
time around, like I'm finding everything is being done so much more smoothly because I had
Yeah.
that experience
I
behind
bet.
me. And
Yeah, yeah,
so
totally.
I think it's really great how you went into like, okay, I'm gonna enjoy the process and I'm gonna learn, and also that you made it a point to make the project meaningful to you too, and went back to old songs and revisited like which ones fit the album. And so, when you were choosing the songs and putting together the album, did you have a solid concept that you were finding songs to fit that, or did you kind of just collect these songs and then see the thread that you wanted to title the album and collect those songs afterward?
Yeah, I think I saw the thread eventually, definitely. I did know that I wanted, for example, I play this, instrument called the Appalachian dulcimer, and I think it deserves a bigger stage, and so that was one of the elements I really wanted to be on the record was a few dulcimer songs, because there isn't that much dulcimer present like, general public music. It's not really in the consciousness of people, so I really wanted to give it a space on the record.
That's fabulous, and that's also tied to what you love in your culture as well, and I think that's really
Mm,
unique, like, it's definitely going to set your music apart for sure.
right.
So you did mention too that it was great working with other creatives, and I think that's fantastic working with musicians and your producer and all of that. But I did see that it was an all-female production on this project. Is that right?
Yeah.
How was
Yeah,
that like for
totally.
you?
It was awesome. It was so good, and it wasn't even planned. It was just like I knew which engineer I wanted to work with. I knew which producer I wanted to co-produce this record with. So, like, it just happened, and then it happened, I think, on the day on the days we were recording in the studio, we had mostly a female identifying, assistant in the studio as well, which was just, so it was a little intentional in the sense of that I knew that I wanted to work with certain people, but it just we came together and we're like, "Oh shit, we're an all-female production team." Like, that's pretty cool.
That's perfect. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah, I love when I can work with other female musicians. My drummer is female, and I had a flutist play on one of my songs recently,
Ah,
and she
yeah.
was phenomenal. I think there's so many talented female musicians.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, I do a lot of female empowerment, kind of themes on the record.
Right,
There are a
right.
lot of those on the record, and so I think it happened, and it was a really good thing that it happened because we were talking about certain things in the studio and creating music around certain things. It was really good that we were an all female production team. Like, it was cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So let's dive deeper into this record now. So I would love for you to give a brief track by track, share each song and the inspiration and story behind it.
Yeah, so track number one is a song called Aesthetics of Sorrow. And it's the first song I really purposefully wrote for this record. And I kind of wanted it to encapsulate the feeling of talking about mental health and acknowledging days where we don't really feel our, 100%, but still wrap that in like a comfortable, like happy sound. So that was the first track. And it's, yeah, the first track on the record, which is really meaningful. The second track is a song called "Day I Found the Moon," which is a lot more ended up being a lot more Americana than I had intended, but I feel like that's really what the song called for, which is really cool. And it's just about following your path and making sure that you don't always follow the things that are easiest, but sometimes that you look around you and see what's best for you and what fills you up in the right way, what life choices and what paths we take, kind of. The third track is a song called From the Outside. It was the first single that we released for this record. It's inspired by the Swedish forest, and it's one of the dulcimer tracks on the record, which is really cool. And yeah, track four is surprisingly disco. It is, this is the running gag. It's surprisingly disco for a folk album because that's really what this is. Um, but I was trying to, I really felt like I wanted to explore genres that were, that I actually really enjoyed and I hadn't expected to enjoy. And disco was that genre for me. So I really wanted to write a song around that. And it's also about the parts of ourselves that we discover, um, that we didn't think that we were. Yeah, number five is Epithet, which is the name of the album also. It's an anthem. We take this up in the music video. There's a really cool music video that we shot in Brooklyn last summer. Um, but it's an anthem against catcalling, or when you're catcalled or when you're diminished to a certain thing that you are not. Um, when you're minimized, it's nice to have a community to celebrate yourself with, and that's really what this song is for, I guess. Number six is Lighthouse, which is inspired by this lighthouse in the fishing village that my grandmother used to live in. She passed away last year, unfortunately, but there was this lighthouse that I kept coming back to that was so significant to my life. to the reflection, like looking back on my life. It was a place I always came back to, and it taught me a lot about myself. I feel like, yeah. Seven is a song called "Heaven and Hell." It is. I wrote it during COVID, and it's about Christian nationalism, and I'm just going to leave it at that because it's a pretty heavy subject. Number eight is Mastermind. I grew up around a lot of kind of problematic relationships to food, so this is the 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 peace I made with myself, with my younger self, essentially, in that um, in that framework. Number nine is Your Side of the Pillow. This is actually the first song I ever wrote on the Appalachian Dulcimer, and it was about the guy who was my boyfriend at the time, and he's now my husband. And it's a very sentimental song for me. Also, one of my favorite Dulcimer songs I've ever written, I think. And then number 10 is One Word, which is also an Appalachian Dulcimer song. And it's about it always sounds heavy when I say this, but it's really about the Madonna complex, like this idea that women often are categorized as sexual objects or as mother roles, um, or mother figures, I guess. So that's what the record ends on, and so there's a lot of female
Perfect.
little female empowerment pops in there, hopefully.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful, and I can definitely tell that you have personal connections to these songs, and also your titles are so good. Like,
Oh my
some of them are
gosh,
so lyrical
thank you.
too, like, oh my goodness.
Oh, wow, that's so sweet. Yeah. Cool, thank you. I'm glad you think so.
What do you hope listeners take away from this album?
I hope they take a sense of positivity and, like, rejuvenation in terms of, resisting against the systems and people that don't do us well.
Yeah,
Um,
good one.
and yeah, and that they just enjoy it. Like,
Mhm.
I do wanna make enjoyable music, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, do you have a favorite memory from the studio? I always love hearing studio stories.
Oh my god. I think probably on the 3rd day, I think we were in the studio and it was getting to the point where we were actually you could hear the record, like, you could hear it coming alive, and it was a pretty stressful few days. We wanted to get everything right. I'm very picky sometimes, so everyone was kinda bearing with me.
Me
And,
too.
on that yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's good in a way, but it kinda doesn't contribute to the mood exactly.
Yeah.
But my co-producer, Mary Bragg, I think she went out or she asked one of the assistant I can't remember, but she brought in a bottle of Woodford Reserve, and we drank some whiskey in the studio with everyone, and it was, like, just a moment of, like, "Okay, this is going well. Like, this is gonna be great." Like, it was such a moment of relief. So that moment stuck with me for sure.
That's fun. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, that's so great. I love studio days, they're the best. They're so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was your first experience creating a full album. So what do you think one of the biggest lessons you've taken away is?
Um, I th I would say step away. Like, I'm always saying, I wish in retrospect, there are things that I think I would've changed if I had 2 weeks completely away from the music. You know what I mean? Like, I think time is your absolute friend when you're creating music, especially when you're creating a whole album, and really stepping away from it for, like, 24 hours or a week or whatever is always gonna make the product better, I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. That's the thing. When I did my debut album, I had a set, like, release date. So, it's gonna sound wild, but my lucky number has always been 512 for some wild reason.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
I try as hard as possible when it fits to pick release dates with those numbers. And so I wanted to release
Mm.
the album on 10/15/21. And
Oh my
so
god.
I had all this in my head, and I, like, rushed it, and I stressed everybody out. My graphic designer was stressed out, my producer was stressed out, like, everybody, like, probably hated me by the end of it. I was so stressed out that I couldn't even fully, like, enjoy it, and so, like,
Right.
looking back, like, I loved the album, but there
Mm.
are definitely things where I was like, "Oh, maybe I could've, like, resung this one, or maybe I should've, given my producer more mix suggestions on this one." Like,
Right.
it's, like, all this criticism, but, like, now, like, I'm literally taking my time. I've been recording this
Yeah.
album for a while. I just started releasing singles for, and it's just a more enjoyable process, and it's a
Yeah.
better product overall because
Right.
when I wrote the songs, I really sat down and like had the concept in mind, and I was like, okay, like which ones am I doing? And then really focused on those ones to get the songwriting where it needed to be, and then in the studio, like really focusing too. Like there's a song, it's called Kind Heart, which was the lead single that's out, and
Mm.
I was at a studio day once, and I was going to sing that song, but I just wasn't in the right headspace. And so I told myself, no, you are not singing
Mm.
this today. Sing it a different day. And so I did. And so I was a lot more flexible, and
Right.
it's given me a better product. And so
Yeah.
definitely stepping back, taking time is a huge one that I learned too.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree with you.
Perfect. So just to wrap things up, what advice do you have for any songwriters listening?
Oh, this is gonna sound like such a cliche, but I think just living life. You know what I mean? Like, I think the most beautiful songs come out of people just living their lives and seeing things that inspires them and, you know, has them come up with a concept for a song that might end up meaning something completely different, but it's just digging into to life as much as you can, I think.
I love that so much, and I completely relate. I think the best thing we can do as songwriters is to live our lives because
Mm.
what's really great is it seems like you and I both really write from personal experience, but
Mm.
there are songwriters who write more fictionally, but still,
Totally.
you get inspired by things. You might read something or you might see something
Absolutely.
occurring when you're out and about that inspires you to write a fictional story about whatever you saw. And so I think
Yeah.
no matter if you're writing authentically from your personal experience or if you're writing fictional stories that have raw emotion, you can't do either of those without living. And so I
Totally.
completely love that piece of advice, just to live your life and be open to the inspiration because it can come from many different areas. And mostly for me, it's like when I'm not even looking like for something, when I'm not even thinking, I want to write a song, it just, I have experiences and I witness things that spark my mind and make me think, oh, I could write a song about this. And then I
Yeah.
do. And so I
Yeah.
love that piece of advice.
Oh.
Yeah, to wrap up, I would love you to share with everybody where they can find you online and check out your music.
Yeah, you can find me everywhere under the handle Helena Hallberg Music. I am on TikTok. I talk on the about the dulcimer on TikTok a lot. That's like my thing. I try to bring it to the younger generations. But yeah, when I have my the album release show happening on April 15th at the Basement. So that's really exciting. So feel free to come to that.
Yay! Ooh, how have fun.
Thank you. Oh, it's gonna be so much fun. It's tax day too, so
Oh
everyone's
my
like
god.
done their taxes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and
Thank you.
congratulations on a wonderful project.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed this chat with Helena. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right
right on
on
track.
track.